doing this particular topic because honestly, this is where we wish we lived all the time. We wish we lived in the primary prevention place where folks were asking questions early about safety before a child is sexually harmed, not when there's warning signs necessarily, not when there's already a situation. And so today in this webinar, we really hope that we will help folks identify some primary prevention steps. And while the majority of you out here are professionals, this is how to think about family, about safety planning in the family. So we really invite you to listen to this webinar, thinking about how you would bring this information to the children and the families that you work with. We hope that you'll be able to describe some key features of the safety plan, and we want to explore how to have some primary prevention conversations. And as Mike has said, we'll do a couple of role plays. And most importantly, we just really want to inspire safety planning, which is the key to prevention in so many ways.
Right. Thanks, Jenny. And before we get really rolling here, we wanted to ask you all if you've ever had a conversation, about sexual abuse when there was not a specific warning sign or concern. So basically, have you ever had a talk with somebody about safety that was purely preparatory? Please vote now. And sorry for that spelling mistake. The last one should be unsure, not unsire.
Wow, so far, everybody who's voted has had a preliminary prevention-based conversation. That's great.
That's really fantastic. And we've got more than half of people voting in.
Great, we'll give them just a second more. Oh, here we go. Well, we have another push. So 85% yes so far, 14% no. Wow, it's great to see how many folks have had these early conversations.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people saying yes, and that, like Jenny said, that's really fantastic. So the next thing we wanted to ask you guys one more question, for those of you who did answer yes, we wanted to know with whom did you have this conversation? So who did you talk about safety planning with when you were concerned, when there wasn't some incident you were concerned about? With a parenting partner, a relative, a neighbor, or acquaintance, parents of your children's friends, or a professional, please select all that applies. It doesn't have to be just one. Looks like so far we're seeing a lot of people talking to relatives, professionals, parenting partners for sure. And yeah, if there's something there that we missed, please chat in your thoughts because we only have 5 options that we can put in there, and there might be something that we missed.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to see how many folks are talking to parents of their children's friends too. Yeah, 38% really so far. Lots of conversations with relatives, 80%. Great.
Okay.
Well, great to see the range of folks who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
So that is really fantastic that so many of you have had conversations and now you're tuning in now to find out a little bit more about, safety planning. And so we wanted to quickly talk about what we're seeing on our helpline as well. Some of you may already be familiar with the prevention level continuum. This is something that we use to help talk about prevention concerns and responses. So green is primary prevention. This is before there's a concern or incident that requires a response, but still includes adult engagement. Yellow is when there is some type of concern or a warning sign. There's something that alerts us and calls for a responsive action. And then there's red when abuse is known to have happened either through a disclosure or through evidence. On our helpline, we assess the level of each of our inquiries, and while our assessment is pretty limited and just based solely on the little information that we have about each situation, we're still able to mostly identify the prevention level of most of the cases that we see. And here you can see really why we said that our wish is that all of the cases we had were primary. because we often hear from these situations so rarely. And this is really where the opportunity to pre-plan and keep kids safe is the easiest and the most effective as well.
But absolutely, and in fact, what you're all seeing on your screen is the breakdown of our inquiries from the past 4 years. And really, these statistics have been consistent from year to year. So really, only 2% of our helpline contacts are considered green, are in that purely primary prevention place. And actually, to be honest, many of those cases that we've identified as green, they're not even presented as purely green. Some of them are calls and emails from folks that have had some sort of triggering situation that prompts usually the parent to reach out to us with questions like, for example, how to handle children's normal sexual behaviors like masturbation or a brother trying on his sister's clothes, or even initial curiosity-driven acts of looking up pornography online. In some cases, there may have been questions about an adult close to the family who has displayed some poor boundaries or social skills, or maybe they just ignore family rules, like the expectation that everyone asks children if they want a hug without forcing the physical contact, and they just ignore that. Or maybe it's concerns about someone who doesn't seem careful about what they say in front of kids, or they use a lot of gender stereotypes that can feel uncomfortable. And it prompts our helpline folks to think about, what is our family doing overall to keep children safe? And then there's also the survivors who contact us wanting to protect others. And we also hear from concerned parents seeking advice upon discovering an offender is living in their community. And we'll talk more about those in a bit. For each of these situations, we do see them primarily as green. They aren't clear, there aren't clear warning signs. And so even though there might be some questions about behaviors like what's normal, what's not, perhaps there isn't a specific relationship that's really identified as a risk, but there's an opportunity. There's an opening to talk about what safety planning overall can look like, beyond depending on the registry, and certainly beyond keeping kids safe under lock and key.
Yeah. So before we get much further, I wanted to quickly touch on what primary prevention means. Primary prevention is concerned with preventing the onset of injury or disease. It aims to reduce the incidence of injury or disease. It involves interventions that are applied before there's any evidence of disease or injury. So this really works for discussions of child sexual abuse, as sexual abuse is an injury. It's an injury to the mind, the body, the spirit, the soul, and the heart. You know, the injury is not only individual, but it's familial and societal. Relationships are injured, development is injured, and there certainly is disruption and costs on many fronts. And we're really looking to reduce these injuries caused by sexual abuse by intervening before abuse happens to prevent harm from occurring. Working in a primary prevention mindset, it really requires that we build our knowledge about sexual abuse. We can prepare in advance, starting with learning as much as we can about what's needed for a kid's safety. And safety plans are a way of this preparation, and we're going to focus more on that in just a bit. So prevention really depends on active, ongoing, and clear communication. We have to talk with each other, and we have to talk clearly about plans and behaviors. It's important to recognize our shared hopes for children's safety and our intentions to work together to keep environments safe. And we also need to recognize that all the planning and all the communication needs to be interwoven together, and we need to follow up and integrate the planning into our daily life and activities, and that we need to really remain consistent and constant to keep the safety planning going and going and going and going. All right, so, but how do we really prepare and practice primary prevention, right? That's the question. Well, this is basically it. There are two big steps. Of course, we want everyone to know as much as they can about children's development, as we stated, and in particular, learn about sexual development. Really, just learn everything that you can about children's sexual well-being and safety. In essence, that's kind of just embedded in safety planning, that adults will learn everything they can to help kids stay safe. And this is what we're trying to help folks do. Think about the safety rules, what we're calling a safety plan, the formal rules, the unspoken ones, the fuzzy ones, and at least reflect on what it is parents and professionals who are working with parents, what they want to see in the families they care for regarding boundaries, body autonomy, respect, and personal safety. And professionals specifically, what they want to see in the families they work with, the environments where they work, the handbooks, practices, and policies in their work settings.
Right. And, since we know that prevention cannot happen unless we talk about it with the kids in our lives, through how we model relationships, how we talk to them about their own bodies and experiences, how we talk about things that they've seen and we've seen in the media, and we talk about it with other adults. Adults we parent with, that we work with, members of our family, just as that poll showed. Sometimes the conversations are high-level planning conversations, general, and sometimes we have to speak to someone about a specific behavior that gives the wrong messages, like that aunt who wants a hug from the kids, whether they want to give one or not. And actually, while we're trying to keep the focus on the people writing in with a more primary prevention situation, these steps really are the foundation to what we try here at the Helpline to promote for practically everyone who contacts us. Even when someone presents a situation where there are warning signs, or even when abuse has happened, there's always room and absolutely necessity to think about safety planning. Really, at all times, everyone living with and working with kids should keep focused on safety planning and keeping open discussions about children's safety. So let's begin to introduce our Helpline Voices on this webinar, and where primary prevention really is the response that's most evident. So first are these words from a mom who also self-identified as a survivor. Dear Helpline, I experienced abuse as a child and I want to protect my child from harm. What do I do? How do I talk to her? How do I get my family to honor my choices for her safety? Well, we've always known that survivors lead the charge for prevention, and this is such a great example of that. Survivors know how important prevention planning is, and of course they know the horror of abuse. And now as parents, sexual abuse safety is not just something in the news, it's real. And it could happen to their own children and children in their lives that they care about. So they're willing to ask the uncomfortable questions before something happens. And then there's also this voice I mentioned earlier of the parent who just found out that someone who's on the sex offender registry lives in their neighborhood. Dear Helpline, I just found out a sex offender lives next door. I have 3 small children and now I'm terrified. And just a reminder, these are all real letters that we get and the words that folks are writing into us. And this is somewhat of a frequent theme in the calls and letters and chats that we get on the Helpline. And our response is really rooted in teaching these concerned, usually parents, about primary prevention. So yes, this writer here is perceiving a specific risk, a risk from someone who they may not have met or may not know well, but in many ways, this risk could be anywhere. We just don't always know who our neighbors are. And since so many cases of sexual abuse are undisclosed, we don't know all the folks who pose a risk. So we need to think about safety planning as a way to protect our children, certainly when we know about risks, but more importantly, we do it all the time so kids are protected when we're not aware of the potential risks. Now, I really want to be clear, it's not like we want everyone acting paranoid and seeing a risk in every neighbor and friend, but since we just don't know where all the risks are to kids, we need to be vigilant and we need to be proactive, planning for safety before there's a clear warning sign and before a child is approached. Now, our Helpline does address ways to specifically learn more about a registered sex offender's crime, treatment, probation, or parole criteria such as their living restrictions. But the underlying need in this situation is to really help parents begin to think about and establish a plan of safety, no matter what, whether there's a registered offender in the neighborhood or not.
Yeah, and so then there's this voice and this situation, a parent or another caregiver who's discovered children playing in a manner that is developmentally appropriate. Dear Stop It Now Helpline, my daughter is now 5 and a half, A few days ago, I found her and her friend naked in the basement. They were supposed to be changing into princess outfits and come right back up. They took too long. I checked and caught them. They were giggling, and I explained that we play with clothes on and that private parts are meant to be private. What else should I be doing, and how can I make sure that she comes to me with questions? I want to make sure I get this right. So yeah, we need to respond to the children in healthy and supportive ways. And these types of situations really prompt parents to think about what else can be done to establish a healthy and safe home, classroom, or really any other environment where kids are. And FYI, we just love this parent and parents like her, who are really thinking about safety in the healthy and developmentally appropriate stages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so for these kinds of inquiries, talking about safety planning is really a great place to start because it really does include so much more. Thoughtful and open communications, information about sexual development, and families working and learning together.
Right. And before we do go much further on safety planning itself, we just want to point out that safety planning can start anytime and when children are any age. And we're always trying to figure out here at Stop It Now how to reach more parents with preventive information. And actually, a couple of years ago, I'd expressed a wish to have our helpline information available and posted at obstetrician and pediatrician offices, along with information on promoting healthy sexuality development. And someone commented to me that no new parents they know of would want to think about child sexual abuse when their child is just an infant. And that's true, but yet this is when we wish folks would think about it. I mean, heck, we dream about what our kids will be when they grow up and what kind of life we hope they'll have. We think about how to promote their cognitive skill development, their physical development, how to help them grow strong and healthy in every way. And we need to include thinking about promoting healthy sexuality development and keeping them safe as early as possible.
Yeah. So a safety plan, it's really so much more than just a set of rules. It reflects family values, beliefs, and practices. While they may begin as written rules, they should become embedded in the day-to-day behaviors and situations that, a family encounters. Hopefully they'll, slowly become much more like second nature, more like this is just how our family does it. Outside of the home, a safety plan, may be incorporated into student teacher or parent handbooks or policies and procedures for a larger youth-serving organization. I know we're focused a bit more right now on thinking about safety planning in the home, but it is helpful to put safety rules in the context of all the environments where kids hang out. So I hate to use the word rules, as that almost begs for them to be broken, but children really do understand rules, right? And making these rules without any exception for everyone, everywhere, makes it easiest for kids to grasp these concepts and to hold adults accountable. And, if these rules are for everyone, it begins to set the stage for conversations that are not accusatory, but instructive. But that doesn't mean that these rules are set in stone. As children grow, these rules will need to be reviewed and updated and adapted to them personally, their developmental stages, their learning styles, and their environment. Safety planning involves giving children and adults rules about body boundaries, what they should and should not do with other people, and also what other people should and should not be doing with them. We involve conversations about consent and privacy and respect too, and this would include modeling good choices for them, using everyday situations like movies and TV shows as a good jumping off point for keeping these conversations going, and making sure that we're taking the opportunities to even discuss little broken rules, like hitting someone on the butt as a joke.
Right. And also, we can't say it enough. When children have accurate information about themselves, their bodies, and what changes they may be going through, then they'll be better equipped to understand when something's not right. They'll have the words to use if someone ever makes them feel uncomfortable, and they'll be getting information from a trusted, reliable source. Kids talk on the playground, they have access to the internet, and they may come across explicit messages in a magazine or while watching a movie, and they'll be curious. So helping them satisfy this curiosity in a safe way and being an adult they can turn to and ask questions of is so valuable. So we want to teach them as part of our safety plan to come to a trusted adult when they have a question, as that will help the adult stay involved and give them good information. Also, We want to name a few trusted people besides mom and dad they can talk to, so there's always someone there for them, especially if one of the safe adults is doing something concerning. We want to ask, what if mom broke a rule? Who would you talk to? Or what if you didn't feel comfortable talking to dad? Who could you speak with? Come up with at least 3 adults your child feels comfortable talking to. Kids should also know that no matter what, they can always talk to a safe adult if they did something against the rules, or if they're worried that someone else may have, or that something happened but they didn't say no or try to stop it. So every family safety plan is unique for every family, but there are, of course, lots of similar rules that can be shared. And in your handouts, there is an example of a very extensive safety plan. We often train in professional substitute care organizations like foster care and residential settings, and this was developed for them, and so they may seem a bit strict to some of you. For example, one of the safety plan examples on this list is that children do not sleep in the same bedroom with adults. Now, this caused quite a discussion in one of our trainings a couple of years ago. One of the training participants, who was the youth program director, spoke from her own experience as a parent and not her professional hat, which actually happens a lot in our trainings for professionals. So this parent/professional said that this rule would never work in her house. Her 2 boys often jump into bed with her and her wife. And I remember jumping into bed with my parents as a kid on Saturday mornings because they had a TV in their room, and watching Saturday morning cartoons in mom and dad's big bed was super fun. But in the course of this discussion at this training, another participant, also speaking from her parent hat, said that actually when she thinks about it, she would want this to be the rule that her child follows at other people's houses, and that she was comfortable having a rule that the adult's bedroom was off limits to the kids. So when you all review that handout, or if you share it with families, recognize that at first glimpse it can seem overwhelming. And it's often great to start off with a family safety plan that's got maybe 5, 6 rules, and that they should be appropriate to the family, as we'll talk more about, but that you don't have to include everything. But I still invite you to consider each rule as a possibility. A family safety plan needs to make sense for the family it's guiding, for what their own family culture dictates, planning for known situations that could come up. So, for example, and this may sound familiar, there's a family value in a family that children should respect their elders, and that when great Aunt Miriam wants to hug the kids goodbye, and she feels that the kids should be respected, accept the hug, give her a hug back, we want to think about how can we respond as the parents and as the guardians for these children. How can we help kids' boundaries be respected while kind of adhering to our family culture of respecting Aunt Miriam? What can the parents say to Aunt Miriam to protect the kids and to show her respect? And when you think these things out beforehand, it can make these situations a lot easier when they're actually happening.
Yeah. So we often get asked about safety planning for kids with disabilities. And though the rules are kind of the same across the board, professionals and caregivers of children of differing abilities certainly may need to think a bit more about how these rules are formulated and delivered, and actually how they may need to be adapted, changed, or reinforced a little differently for the kids in their lives. So how might that play out exactly? If your child has trouble extrapolating that when you say, "we always play with clothes on," that this actually means everywhere and not just in your living room, you may need to say something like, "this means in the park, this means at school, this means when you're playing with friends, and even when you're at your relatives' houses." If your child or a child you're working with has physical limitations, it may be that you add additional rules or different rules if they need extra care, and take into consideration who they may need this extra care from. Make it as easy as possible for them to tell when something is off or just doesn't feel right. Be clear about the situations that are okay and expected, and how those differ from what's not okay. If your child or if your client's child has some social skill deficits or a mental health diagnosis or even an impulse control disorder, it may be that you take the extra time to recognize what types of situations are the most difficult for that child and build extra safeguards right into your plan. Safety planning can also help you be clear on what your child needs from other people in terms of physical touch and other sensory needs too, which can be useful whether or not your child has a sensory processing disorder. So now does have some really great tools to help with safety planning, such as these 2 tip sheets on your screen. Create a family safety plan and family safety planning specific to children, parents of children with disabilities, as well as some others on our website and linked in your handouts that can be helpful to you and the families that you might be working with in helping to start to think about the rules that you or these parents may want to better define. And we don't want anyone to simply write out a bunch of rules, tell the kids to take a look at the new list of rules on the fridge, and think that that's the safety planning all taken care of. We want to keep communication an ongoing and open thing. And we really want to talk to kids about safety, point out and remind them that people that we love and trust may sometimes break rules with us, and then talk about some sample situations and how to handle them. We're identifying safe adults and helping kids know what to do if they have a question or are concerned or scared. So you may want to take a look at these tip sheets and share them with the families you work with, and use them to create the type of safety plans that meet the unique needs of you and your clients' families, including any cultural concerns too. Jenny, are you there?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had muted myself while I was coughing by mistake. So I talked for a little bit, but nobody heard me. So yeah, well, what I want to tell folks is about the consistency and how important it is to be clear and to be really spelled out in our rules. And the more that we all understand the rules, that we share the same knowledge, that really helps form that protective field over the kids, right? And so really beyond thinking about safety planning specific for sexual safety, all of the bullets that you're all looking at on this slide are part of any environment that helps a child thrive. And I think you all know that safety planning specific for sexual safety are important for the same reasons as safety in all other realms of taking care of kids. When we communicate to children what's expected, when we're consistent with our communication, our expectations, our routines, then children are better protected and prepared. When we tell our kids that our family rule is that no one is allowed to walk into the bathroom without knocking and waiting for a response, then when that child recognizes her friend's older brother opening the bathroom door on her, she recognizes that this is a behavior that's breaking a rule, that it's crossing a boundary, and she's more likely to let someone know because it conflicts with her experiences and her family rules. This certainly makes it easier to hold everyone accountable and helps build everyone's responsibility to promote and follow a safety plan. And another example, if a family has a safety rule that it states it's not okay for anyone, adults or children, to touch a child's private parts, of course, except in medical situations, and with a parent's knowledge and approval for that matter. But when this child has touched a classmate's genitals on the playground, then these rules can help communicate with this child that her behavior is breaking a safety rule. It doesn't make her out to be a bad kid, but focuses on teaching her behaviors that are safe and are allowed, and helping her identify the behaviors that aren't okay and that can be harmful and that aren't allowed.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. So now that we've got a pretty good handle on what safety planning is, let's take a look at a few more of our Helpline Voices to further demonstrate the use of safety plans. The next letters all have similar themes and will help us think about how to use our safety plans to respond to adults' behaviors, as well as just when to bring up safety planning to begin with. Here's Stop It Now Helpline. I was at a family reunion last week and my brother kept making jokes that involved mature punchlines and foul language. It really irked me that he would do that in front of my young children, but he didn't seem to get why that was not okay when I said something to him. All right. And then there's our next letter. Dear Helpline, my wife and I have 2 kids, 6 and 4 years old. They're both at an age where they can now choose, and we want them to, whether or not an adult will hug or kiss them. The problem is that my wife's sister just loves to give them physical affection all the time, even when they seem to be resistant to it. She says that's how they grew up, that it's normal, and it's how she shows her affection. I think it's important for my kids to be able to have their wishes honored about this, but I don't know how to phrase this without hurting some feelings. And finally, there's Dear Helpline. My husband constantly tickles and holds onto my grandson even though our grandson asks him to stop. I mention this to my husband and he says no, he loves it. What can I say to him to make him understand that this isn't okay?
Thanks, Micah. Now, beyond the obvious benefits of a safety plan, which is keeping children safe through spelling out clear rules for behaviors and environments, this also helps make future discussions about boundary crossing behaviors easier, as we've been saying. We can talk about our brother's inappropriate jokes in the context of our family safety plan. We can ask our aunt to respect the way our children want to show affection without singling her out. And we can have a discussion with Grandpa about his inappropriate tickling without ever trying to come up with a reason about why he's doing it. We can talk about the inappropriate behavior, not the intent, and we can respond protectively. A lot of times having these rules in place can make situations less charged and seem less personal, less like you're calling someone out and more like you're asking them to get on board and to help you. So here's the thing, right? We have to communicate with others about our safety plan. Of course, we've talked about the benefits of spelling out the expectations of the safety plan, but now let's look at how you even begin talking about the need for safety planning. Just bringing up that topic of children's sexual safety is super scary and it can be a nerve-wracking thing to do. And it's hard enough to bring up the topic of sexual abuse when there is a concern or a warning sign. Why bring it up at all when there's no problem? So how do you ask a partner, a grandmother, the babysitter, an in-law to follow certain rules about how our children are to be touched and what behaviors we expect from adults, any adults who come into contact with our kids? Hopefully you're all on board with why, but let's move on now to talk about the how.
Yeah, so it's really essential for any important conversation to really consider the basics first and foremost. Having a conversation with a partner about safety planning for the kids while you're both running around, getting ready for work, and trying to get the kids ready for school is just not a best practice. Certainly as kids get older, they too can become a part of designing the safety plan, reviewing the rules and suggesting their own. But parents should begin planning separate from the kids. Caregivers and professionals should work together first, and then the adults can be clear together on what the rules mean, how they'll incorporate them, how to follow them themselves, and talk out any of the kinks, keeping in mind their home and family life. So it's pretty likely that whomever you're going to be speaking with will agree with you when you say that you know that you both want the best for children, that you both love and care for the kids, and that you want them to be safe, and that you want their environment to be safe too. In fact, with so much to disagree on these days, this may be one of the few things that will get everyone's head nodding. Everyone can agree that kids should not be sexually harmed. So start with a place of agreement. Another little tip is to request that the other person helps you keep kids safe. Help them see themselves as a partner responsible not only for thinking about kids' safety, but also as an active participant in keeping kids safe.
And of course, focus on behaviors, not intent. I think that's one of Stop and Now's mantras, right? But it's so important that we remember and practice this, especially when we're talking about primary safety planning. We may be talking in general about planning with someone, but we may also be talking with someone particular about their behaviors and asking them to follow the family or program safety plan. And in early preventative conversations, it's much more effective to keep the focus on the behaviors so that someone doesn't become easily defensive or wrapped up in their own excuses or even apologies. What we want is to help folks shift behaviors that can create more vulnerability in a child's environment. And honestly, we all have to work at that at some time or another. So when we can recognize that we are asking our partners and colleagues to make behavioral changes in accordance with our safety plan, and not because we deem them as unsafe to be around children, our conversations may be more productive and less tense. And it's really helpful to offer examples and reasons, such as, we don't want adults to force a child to hug them, even if it is Aunt Miriam, because we want children to know that they don't have to hug every adult they're told to, because we worry that if they think they have to hug all adults, an adult whose intention is a harmful one can use that child's belief that he has to hug everyone to his advantage. You all know that in particular to this example, we also want kids to have body autonomy. We're teaching consent and boundary issues, and we want our child to know, respect it. These are all good reasons as well, but just a reminder that sometimes you really have to read your audience. Aunt Miriam may not get body autonomy for a 4-year-old, so just be thoughtful in the rationale you offer.
Yeah. And so having a safety plan can really be the first introduction to your wanting to design a safety plan. Some other openings may start with your reasons for wanting to talk about kids' safety. You may want to call out the numerous and frequent reports of sexual abuse in the news, or maybe you even want to share your own experience around abuse. Of course, only do this if you feel comfortable doing so. And, how you want the children in your life not to experience what you did. And while we're talking more about safety planning in families, if you're talking in less intimate settings like a school or a place of worship, the reasons for caring about children's safety can expand into caring about a program's reputation, and even less personal and certainly maybe less altruistic. Reasons like preventing legal and financial fallouts that could happen if a child is abused under that person's or organization's watch. And finally, it is great to end with consensus. Yup, we're all on board together with safety planning. Yup, I'll watch that behavior. Yeah, we'll both talk to the children together. Let the other person know that you appreciate their support, and that the children in the long run will benefit from you all working together. So, the beginning is really often the hardest. We wanted to share some opening lines that we offer to folks to get the conversation started. So you could say something like, I saw this piece on the news today about child sexual abuse, and that got me thinking about safety. Or, when I was a kid, my mom never talked to me about healthy sexuality, and I know that we want to be better parents where our kids can ask us anything. Or, I wanted to talk to you about body boundaries because my kids really look up to you and want to emulate everything you do. I know this feels out of the blue, but I think it's really important we talk about what family safety planning rules we have in our house so my kids are getting the same messages from everyone in their lives. So really, whether we're using current events, personal experiences, flattery, or just sharing your priority in kids' safety, you can hopefully raise safety planning in a cooperative, non-threatening way.
Yeah, that's what we hope, right? And also because we know that, even with tools like sample, like these opening lines and, practice, it's still hard. And so we actually asked members of our Stop It Now Advisory Council how they would start a conversation about sexual abuse prevention. It wasn't necessarily specific to talking about safety planning in a family, but how we talk about this issue anywhere really does impact how we can pull folks into effective, practical, and hopeful dialogue that really looks at prevention and aren't conversations that end up polarizing people, like on issues about whether the registry works or not, or how to, quote unquote, punish an offender. So 3 of these folks on your screen are Past Now employees, and all of them are experts in sexual abuse prevention. So, read these on your own. And again, the conversation is hard to begin, but I think that these offer some really great ways to start. And while we're getting just a little bit away from, again, that personal family safety planning, the conversation about prevention is so important to how we actually approach prevention overall. We just wanted to share an exciting messaging guide that just came out a few months ago on how to talk about prevention out in the big world. It was developed by the Berkeley Media Studies Group in collaboration with Reliance, who's a national partnership dedicated to ending sexual violence in one generation. And so you see the website on your screen, and I certainly encourage you all to take a look at this publication and to share it widely. research really does show that how we talk about prevention makes a huge impact on how we practice prevention. All right, you guys, so we're going to get ready now to do a little role play to help frame how a potential conversation may go. We're going to do 2 of them, and we've written down our lines again, like our last webinar, so we will be reading off our script. And it's okay for you to do the same to figure out what you want to say and how you want to say it at first. Or maybe you want to practice what you want to say to feel more comfortable. So using a script is a fine way to do that. Now, we know that our role plays may be a little bit too cut and dried and honestly maybe a little corny, but we want to get the ball rolling on some ideas, though, on how to talk about this difficult topic and what to do when someone violates a family safety plan. So you probably remember this voice. The joker is the brother of this father who doesn't watch what he says in front of kids. We're going to model a sample conversation with his father and his brother. We'll call the concerned father Fred, and his brother, the joker, he's Sam. Mike is going to play Fred, and our helpline consultant, Mackenzie, has graciously agreed to hop on this webinar, and she's going to become Sam. So let's watch this brief conversation now where Fred brings up his concerns to Sam.
Hey, hi, guys. All right. Hey, Sam. I'm so glad you can meet me after work today.
Hey, Micah. I'm not seeing you guys.
Oh. Micah, I can see you.
I can see Mackenzie.
I see you. I see you both. I think you're good.
You do. Okay, it's probably my
Okay,
screen.
great.
Go ahead with your role play.
All right. Take 2. Hey, Sam. I'm so glad you can meet me after work today. It's good to see you.
No problem. I'm not doing much tonight anyway, unless I hook up with some babe online.
Yeah, well, actually, that's kind of a good segue.
Well, what do you mean?
Sam, you're an awesome brother and a pretty good uncle. And I know that you really care about the kids, and they really look up to you, especially Derek. I was wondering if you could help me with something really important, keeping them safe and healthy.
Well, you know I'd do anything for those guys. I love them like they're my own. Hey, wait, what does this have to do with me hooking up with some chick online?
Well, I wanted to ask you to help me keep the kids safe by not talking about, things in your personal life or even as a joke that could include sexual content.
Oh, are you kidding? This is what this is all about. Listen, okay. The kids are going to hear about sex. And also, bro, I'm just joking. So stop being such a prude.
Yeah, I know they're just jokes, and you're right. The kids are going to be exposed to a whole lot of sexual stuff. But honestly, I'd like to control that as much as possible. And I'm hoping that they'll learn about sex from me and their mom in an age-appropriate way, in an age-appropriate setting, not from jokes, not from swear words and stories that are much more mature than they should be hearing. Just hear me out for a second. Their mom and I have this safety plan for the kids that we believe will help protect them. And it includes rules about adults not exposing kids to mature sexual topics. And the reason why this is a rule is because we hear that adults, who groom children, someone who may be trying to hurt the kids, they could use these kinds of jokes and language you use to see if a kid reacts. And if the kids are not shocked in any way, if they seem like they're used to adults speaking like that to them, it could certainly put them at a greater risk. Because that adult grooming them may think that these kids won't think it's unusual when he starts showing them pornography and then maybe ask them to kiss him or something worse.
That's ridiculous. I would never do that. Are you accusing me of doing that?
No, Sam, please chill out. I'm not thinking that you would do anything like that. But I want to make sure that if anyone does try to hurt the kids, I've made it as difficult as possible for him. So if all the adults, if you, me, Peggy, mom and dad, Peggy's parents, if even their coaches and their teachers use this child-friendly language and stay away from the dirty jokes and the swear words, then my kids will know that an adult who does speak like that to them is someone who isn't following the rules, and perhaps they'll be more likely to let me and Peggy know. Does that make sense?
I guess so. I mean, it still feels like you're going overboard a bit. Kids just need to have fun. But look, you're right about one thing. I love these kids, so I'll agree to this safety plan of yours.
Thanks, Sam. And actually, this isn't the whole plan. This is just a little piece of it. And since you're part of the family, we'd like you to have a copy of the whole plan. The kids know what it is, and if they know that you know it too, it'll make it even that much more important to them. All right.
Great. That was awesome, you guys. Thanks so much. All right, Micah. We're going to move on to a second role play. That first one was after there was a warning sign present. So the next one we want to do is going to be the survivor talking with her parent and with her partner, and using her own experience as a jumping off point in involving her significant other in safety and safety planning. So Micah's going to play the survivor, and I'm going to be coming on as the partner. Oh, there I am.
Oh, you left.
Oh, I'm back, I hope.
Nope. There
That's
you
coming.
are.
There we go.
Okay, great.
Great, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, honey. How was your day at work?
Oh, it was good, but I am sure glad to be home.
Yeah, I mean, me too. And I was honestly hoping that we could get the chance to talk for a few minutes while we're working on dinner. That sound okay?
Yeah, sure. What's up?
Yeah, so you know how I talked to you about what I went through as a child and how much that impacted me?
Oh, yeah, and I'm still so sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to talk to you because I want to make sure that Livy never has to go through what I went through.
Yeah, I don't know what I would ever do if I found out that someone had hurt her like that.
Yeah, I know we're both on the same page here. And honestly, I never talked with my folks about this kind of stuff when I was little. We never talked about appropriate touches and boundaries or about my body and what was normal growing up. I knew that something felt off, when the abuse was happening, but I couldn't say why, and I didn't know who to talk to. I think it's really important that we work on a family safety plan together. Come up with a concrete set of rules that every adult and child should be following when they're around Livy, rules that she needs to follow too.
Okay, well, I know that she already knows that no one's supposed to be touching her private areas. We go over that rule all the time.
Yeah, we do. And that rule is important. But family safety rules are much more than just that one rule about private areas. It also teaches her how she should be playing with her playmates and how relatives should be interacting with her too. Things like surprises are okay, but we don't keep secrets. And we always play with clothes on when we're playing.
Well, isn't that second rule pretty obvious?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to us because we're adults. It may not be obvious to her. And think about how many times she's torn off her clothes giggling when she's around us, especially right before bath time.
Right, but that's normal, right? Don't kids that age do that all the time?
Yeah, it's normal, and it's totally normal for her to be curious. And I want her to come to us with questions, but we also need to be clear with her about what kind of behavior is appropriate in case she ever gets faced with a situation that's confusing or scary. This will make sure that she can come to us. It can also help her make good decisions when she's with her friends. Say she were at her friend's house playing, then she would know that she and her friend should be playing with their clothes on. My friend Christy told me the other day that her daughter was playing with her friend, and this friend asked her to see her privates. She went to her mom and asked whether this was okay. And that's what we want Livy to do too.
Yeah, that really makes sense. I mean, I definitely want Livy to feel comfortable to come to us.
Yeah, that's really important. And these rules are also for adults too. So I'm going to need your help in getting our whole family on board with these. It'll feel easier for us in the future, though, if we start these conversations now.
Great. Well, that sounds good. I am totally in, and I guess I also have some learning to do.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Micah. All right, we're going to turn off our webcams. I feel like we should bow or something. And thanks, Mackenzie, for all of your help. We really appreciate that. So we're almost done, and we'll take some questions in a moment. Please feel free to start chatting in any thoughts or questions. And I just saw applause from Tatum. Thank you. And we'll do our best to get to any questions. But first, we just want to remind folks that safety plans are live documents. They're living documents, I should say, and they should be reviewed regularly, not just when there's been a boundary violation or when a rule's been broken. Reinforce the rules in regular conversations, sharing media together, talking about school days together, planning for vacations and events. It's not that parents need to say every day, now don't forget your safety plan rules and have a good day, but we can bring up situations that come up in life and use them to check in about things like maybe whether there was a secret involved or consent or privacy issues are in question. Also, I heard a great recommendation once to review the safety plans on children's birthdays, kind of a, well, now that you're a year older, let's make sure our family safety plan is growing with you. And that way you can take into account developmental changes that may influence the rules in your plan.
Great, thanks, Jenny. So finally, we wanted to share some of the resources with you. Again, please check out the ones in your handout section. There are a ton there, from those sample safety planning rules to more general ideas about how to start a safety plan, information on age-appropriate sexual behavior, how to talk to children, as well as handouts specific to caregivers and professionals who work with children with disabilities. You guys may also want to check out these websites if you don't know them already. Early Open often gives parents information and videos, some really cool videos about how to start conversations with their children on preventing sexual abuse. And the Advocates for Youth and the Sexuality Resource Center for Parents gives information and tips for everyone in how to talk to children, including children with disabilities, about healthy sexuality, about development, and how to prevent abuse.